Okay, thank you very much for taking time to submit some of your comments and messages over the last week. Much appreciated. I thought we'd do a little bit different this week, but we're going to share the burden of reviewing and commenting on the selected messages. So let's start off tonight with a message via email from Devin Dell from Yeovil. Good evening to you, Devin Dell. Kudos to the Gladiators management for continuing to sign top-line riders as we try to finish strongly. Real sad that Dan Klima was injured, but simply amazing to land Scotty. Nigel, was that news that you might have expected? The Gladiators in the transfer market again? Scott Nicholls is going to see out the season in Plymouth.
It would be very easy for Plymouth not to have done anything, wouldn't it?
Next up, Wandering Star. I love the name. Wandering Star from Cambridgeshire has been in touch via WhatsApp. Easy. Knockout Cup finalist and only Leicester to beat! An amazing performance to draw at Superstar Ippo. Our lads have the belief in themselves to lift this trophy and reward our loyal fans. Carol, that's obviously a big nod to something that we touched on earlier. Kings Lynn eliminated Ipswich, Superstar Ipswich, in the Knockout Cup semi-final, and they're going to face off to Leicester in that cup final later in the season. Quite a feather in the cap, quite an achievement for an otherwise struggling Kings Lynn side, Carol.
Yeah, but look at the Kings Lynn side. It is a good side. It's underperformed. It certainly should be doing a lot better than what it is in the league. And I know Rob, he'll be scratching his head as to why. I know they lost Ben through injury, but he's back now and he's sort of in and out, and I think he's still struggling a little bit, and that upsets the balance of the team. When you've got to bring different riders in, certainly in the league, and we've been to Ipswich in the Knockout Cup final, and we was leading quite heavily at Peterborough. They pulled it back, and they thought they'd done the job before we'd got to Ipswich, and we held on at Ipswich and turned them over for the and they was overconfident, and I don't know whether that was the case this time, but yes, a tough place to go. And we all know Ipswich is a bit of a trick track, and especially with the riders that they've got there. But Kings Lynn probably caught them on a bad night. They was probably having a good night. They probably know that that's the only route of success for this season. They think they're obviously going to struggle for the playoffs without a massive push. But yeah, the team that they've got there deserves something. Look at the riders that they've got. Look who they've had riding at reserve. Chris Harris. Jan Kvek, a Grand Prix rider at reserve. Yes. That's how we built a team at Peterborough with Rob. It's strong all the way through. So you've always got a strong reserves. Your reserves majority of the time win your meetings, especially if you've got a good one down there.
So yeah, Wandering Star. Kudos, you're quite right to take the opportunity to celebrate your team's success, and good luck when it comes to that Knockout Cup final. Martin McA from West Linton has been in touch via WhatsApp. Hello, Martin. The Monarchs up to third in the league, in capital letters, to third in the league. We are defying all the knockers who wrote us off, and that's without Oscar Polis and a newbie reserve. Kai Thompson, is now finding his form, looking good to reach the knockout cup semis too. Well, Glasgow might have something to say about that, Martin. Stewart McDonald, we touched on the championship table as it currently stands, and Edinburgh, I said, punching above their weight. I mean, they're sitting in third place in the league table and looking as good as anyone currently.
They are, Derek. Hats off to them. I watched a couple of their meetings online, and some of the form that they'll be producing round Armadale. It's a tricky little track, and they seem to have a lot of success there. But for Martin McCart, obviously he's confident up to third. Look at defying all the knockers who wrote us off, but you've fired this question right at me, Derek, who's a Glasgow Tigers fan. So at the end of the day, I want Glasgow to do well. Listen, hats off to the Monarchs. They've rode well in the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks, but I think Glasgow will definitely have a bit of an input on that. And listen, hats off to them for where they are. You know, obviously it's given the fans a little bit of an appetite. I think Edinburgh have probably sort of underachieved quite a bit lately with some of the riders that they've managed to get to Armadale. You look at some of them that they've got. You know, they've had some good riders there, and listen, hats off to them. I wish them well for the rest of the season, but not as well as Glasgow.
Thank you, Stuart. He said that, Martin, not me. Listen, I'm under no illusion that the Knockout Cup quarter-final tie at Ashfield in a week or two's time is going to be a tough occasion, and Edinburgh already have put in some good shifts at Glasgow this season. So anyway, good luck to the Monarchs, Martin. Next up, Bethany G has been in touch from Salford via WhatsApp, and Bethany says, just when you think we may be toiling, we win at Oxford and close the gap at the top. It's all in the timing, and Bellevue are ace at that. I see what you did there, Bethany. Ipswich looking less impressive now. So Nigel, bring you back in, Nigel. So Bethany celebrating the fact that her Bellevue aces, despite some under par performances in recent weeks, have won again on the road, and that's what champions do, Nigel.
Yeah, I think, you know, all your top four keep up and down away from home, aren't they? Bellevue's had some bad ones, some good ones. And it's just going to make it very interesting at the end of the season. And it still performs on the night, isn't it? I mean, you can't see Brady Kurtz, Dan Bewley having bad meeting after bad meeting. Far too good riders for that. They have slipped up on the odd occasion, but I think overall, they're far too good riders to be slipping up that much. But, you know, the same can be said with Ipswich, Emil, Doyle. You know, can you see them slipping up as well? And Leicester, in Max Frey, they've probably got the rider of the month, the last few months at the moment, haven't they? Max Frey is on fire.
Yes.
Very solid throughout, maybe. I don't know. I really don't know. It's very hard to call, isn't it? That's what makes the playoff good. Just it's what happens on the night, and we'll have to wait and see. Wait and see.
Let's not burst Bethany G's confidence now. She's cock a hoop that the aces are going in the right direction, and Bethany, fingers crossed. Yeah. Well, obviously, it looks like the aces will feature in the playoffs. Well, they will, right? They absolutely will.
No doubt about that. No doubt.
Next up, here's an interesting one. Nigel, I'm going to come back to you on this one if you don't mind. So, Colin Simpkins from Glasgow has been in touch via email. We talked about Speedway Heroes last week, and Colin shared this little story with me. So, my dad, who's an electrician, took a job in a house in Glasgow way back in the 60s, 1969 this was, or 68. He saw a picture on the mantelpiece of a Speedway rider. The woman in the house turned out to be Bert Harkin's mother. So she said that she would ask Bert to write to Colin when Bert had a bit of time. And out of the blue, months and months later, Colin received a letter from Australia from Bert. Enclosed were pictures and a letter and pictures of him riding out in Australia in 1969. Colin Simpkins says, absolute hero. How about that from Bert Harkins?
Well, I think anybody would do it, wouldn't they? Yeah, certainly in the day, those lads would do it. And I bet it absolutely made the day when we got the letter off Bert, as it would any of us, wouldn't it, if we was like, you know, it's make any of our day. Great stuff from Bert to do that, follow it up, and not forget it. Because, you know, when you're busy, it's quite easy to forget things. But I think in the day, you know, the riders, they did mix and thought of the supporters. And I'm sure it still does today as well. I'm sure if somebody was to write to Dan Bewley, Brady Kurtz, I'm sure they'd reply, because they all do appreciate the support they get from their own clubs or away clubs, whatever. And I bet it absolutely made his year when he got the letter off Bert, because he probably wasn't expecting it after a while, was he?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Nigel. Almost at the end, Glyn Edwards, that might be someone you know, Nigel. Glyn Edwards got in touch with me via WhatsApp, and Glyn said, hope the powers that be are already planning something for 2026. If they don't do something a bit radical, more and more people will lose interest. No one wants to see a league with 5 teams in. Not holding my breath though. Carol, is Glyn right to speculate and have his fingers crossed that already there's been discussions about next season?
Yeah, I think obviously there's a lot discussed at the AGMs, but there's a lot discussed during the season. There's rumours of certain tracks stepping away from the top league for next season, which is going to be a massive blow, obviously, for the Premiership. We don't know if that's entirely true, but the rumours do seem to be about, and yes, it'll be difficult then for them to run with less teams than what they've got now. It's already a struggle with the teams that they've got. There's not enough. Ideally, we've always said there wants to be 8 to 10 in the top league, but we haven't got 8 to 10 teams that are willing to go into the top league, to make the top league. And that's down to finances. Not everybody can afford a Jack Holder or Emil Saifutinov or Max Frick. You just can't do it. So they're comfortable with where they are, and unfortunately, the Premiership might struggle with that. So yeah, they've got to be looking now and planning ahead for next season and what they do. These discussions need to be had. You can't just leave it until November and then go, oh, by the way, we're going to do this, or what do you think to that? It just doesn't work. And I've been around that table when things are discussed, and sometimes it's not a nice place to be around. We all should be pulling in the same direction, but they don't seem to. Open my eyes, certainly did. But yeah, we need to protect the sport however we can, and we've said this many times, haven't we? Are we going to have to go to one big league next year and lose your top riders?
Yeah. Thank you, Colonel. So fear not, Glenn. Almost certainly, without any doubt whatsoever, conversations are already being held, and all leading up to hopefully rubber stamping come the AGM in November. That would be the normal adopted process, but with much more of an agenda this winter, you should expect perhaps that it might fall a little bit differently this particular time around. But rest assured, Glenn, it's not being ignored. Next up, Stewart McDonald, let's bring you on this one. So Kevin G from Marlow has been in touch. Watching some of your discussions about bringing certain events back or trialling new ones, all highly interesting. Fundamentally, we should be looking to consolidate and grow without risks, no risks. So Kevin's obviously been listening to some of our bring back match races and interleague challenges and anything that was going to be an attractive proposition to, an entertaining one for supporters, Stuart.
I'm obviously looking at that message from Kevin. I agree with Kevin. We should be doing a little bit more to sort of consolidate and make the fundamental parts of it more smoother and give it a better look. But I think with our discussions regarding the Golden Helmet, any sort of extra match races was more of a fan, satisfaction thing, giving the fans a little bit more interest and a little bit more interest in the riders. Let's say I do agree with Kevin, no doubt about it, but I also think that we could bring a little bit more camaraderie back and just give the fans a little bit more than what they've got.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Kevin. And last up for this week, Paul Sowney, one of our YouTube subscribers, has been in touch. I do remember the Interleague Cup competition. The big boys were always drawn away. Remember Hackney drawn away at sister club Rye House, and Hackney just scraped through. Terrific to bring that back. So thank you, Paul, for tuning in and commenting on that discussion last week about Interleague Cup competition. So that completes our group review this week of some of your messages. If you haven't ever taken time or trouble to submit your message, empty your head of some Speedway related thought, please do it. It's cathartic. It will help you just to get it down on paper and get it out, and we'll do our best to feature as many of those as we can week on week.